tackling the issues. Vice President Mike Pence is in Florida. What he's saying about religious freedom and the fight for the unborn. Deadly blast. New developments in the explosion that rocked the city of Beirut, Lebanon. A helping hand. Pope Francis suggests how the faithful can overcome anxiety. And saying goodbye. A bishop from Northern Ireland tells us about the life of John Hume, a Catholic who won the Nobel Peace Prize. On EWTN News Nightly for Wednesday, August 5th, 2020. Good evening. Thanks for joining us tonight. I'm Tracy Sable. Vice President Mike Pence promotes pro-life women's clinics and says life is winning in America. But at the same time, he urges pro-life supporters to continue fighting in the public square for the sanctity of human life. White House correspondent Owen Jensen reports. Owen?
Tracy, Vice President Mike Pence visited a pregnancy care clinic in Florida today. He said he's proud to report that in America there are more pregnancy care clinics than there are abortion clinics, but also warned that progress made in the pro-life movement tonight is at risk.
The pro-life movement is defined by generosity, compassion, and love for women and unborn children. As President Trump said not long ago, quote, every person is worth protecting, every human soul is divine, and every human life, born and unborn, is made in the holy image of Almighty God.
The Susan B. Anthony list arranged today's event. Now, back here at the White House, President Donald Trump is raising more concerns about mail-in voting. He trusts Florida, not Nevada. He tweeted about that today. He points to recent ballot confusion in New York as an example.
In New York, they have thousands of ballots. They don't know what happened to them. Is there fraud? It's a disaster. And that's only for a relatively small number of ballots. But I think they have to do the election in New York over.
Also tonight, Democratic presidential candidate Joe Biden will not be traveling to Milwaukee to accept the nomination due to the coronavirus. Tracy?
Thank you, Owen. White House correspondent Owen Jensen reporting for us tonight. President Barack Obama's former Deputy Attorney General got a grilling from Republicans today over the investigation into President Trump's National Security Advisor, Michael Flynn. Senate Judiciary Committee Chairman Lindsey Graham asked Sally Yates if she knew that former FBI Director James Comey ordered the interview of Flynn.
I was upset that Director Comey didn't coordinate that with us and acted unilaterally. Yes, I was.
Okay. Did Comey go rogue?
You could use that term, yes.
The Senate Judiciary Committee is looking into the reasons why the FBI launched Operation Crossfire Hurricane and the investigation of members of the incoming Trump administration. Tropical storm Isaias is weakening as it heads towards Canada. The storm heavily damaged a church in southern Virginia. High winds ripped the front wall off the First Baptist Church near Norfolk. One of the bricks fell on a gas meter, causing a gas leak that was quickly fixed. The pastor says he will rebuild. The church was built back in 1893. Residents in Beirut, Lebanon, woke up to a scene of utter destruction today. Last night, a massive explosion ripped through the Lebanese capital. More than 130 people are reported dead, and thousands more are wounded. Correspondent Mark Irons reports. Mark?
Tracy, this blast was triggered when a fire came in contact with a facility that stored thousands of tons of ammonium nitrate. That's a chemical that's often found in explosives. And now Beirut, a city once rocked by civil war, tries to recover from what has been called the most powerful explosion the city has ever seen.
Today, a clearer picture emerging from the wide damage caused by last night's explosion in Beirut. Reports of a mounting death toll. Lebanon's health minister says at least 135 people have been killed and 5,000 wounded. Others still missing in the aftermath. The area around the site of the blast flattened, the port littered with debris. This woman says the whole house collapsed upon us. And video of a live-streamed mass shows a priest run for cover during the explosion. Another eyewitness sums up the destruction in Beirut.
I mean, this is really the worst thing I've ever seen.
Lebanese American Tawfiq Baklini, president of In Defense of Christians, says the blast killed some of his friends.
I've lost a few friends, and still some are missing. So we're praying for them and for their safety.
Now a search for answers is underway. Lebanon's president visited the site of the explosion today and promised a transparent investigation. But Baklini calls the Lebanese government corrupt.
This should be investigated by outside countries.
And he says any aid money should not go to the government, but to humanitarian groups who are now trying to help.
So the search for answers continues. The Lebanese government has placed some port officials under house arrest amid speculation this could be a case of negligence. Now, yesterday, President Trump referred to the explosion as an attack, although some U.S. defense officials have said there is no indication of that at this point. Tracy?
Correspondent Mark Irons reporting for us tonight. Thank you, Mark. Our Catholic bishops here in the U.S. with ties to Lebanon are closely following the developments there and asking for prayers as the country deals with a catastrophe. In a joint statement, Bishop Gregory Mansour of the Eparchy of St. Maron of Brooklyn and Bishop Ali Zayden of the Eparchy of Our Lady of Lebanon of Los Angeles write in part, quote, "We appeal to all nations, all people of goodwill, to stand in solidarity with the Lebanese." His Excellency Bishop Gregory John Mansour of the Eparchy of St. Maron of Brooklyn joins me now by Skype. Your Excellency, thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you, Tracy.
I know it must be so difficult for you to see these images of a country that you love so much. Can you talk about that?
First, the love. Lebanon deserves love. With all that it's gone through, Lebanon deserves love, especially the people, and especially those who work for the poor in Lebanon. Especially Catholic institutions that serve Catholics, non-Catholics alike. Lebanon deserves love. So yes, Tracy, we do love Lebanon, and we're very sad to see this happen.
Again, as you mentioned, Lebanon was already dealing with so much, including soaring rates of poverty and unemployment, and now this. What are your biggest concerns for the people there in Beirut?
The fatigue. There are doctors, nurses, first responders, just people on the street. And places like Caritas Lebanon or St. Vincent de Paul Society in Lebanon, those are the people that are the salt of the earth, as well as many Catholic and non-Catholic NGOs in Lebanon. And they're working beyond their means. And that's why the Patriarch today, Maronite Patriarch, issued a call to everybody outside of Lebanon to keep their eye on Lebanon and to assist in any ways that they can.
Have you heard from anyone there? And besides what you mentioned, what else can we do here in the U.S. to help?
Well, so Bishop Zaidan and I have designated Caritas Lebanon as the particular, because it's the Catholic Church's outreach. It's the Catholic charities in Lebanon. And also, I would say St. Vincent de Paul Society. We're used to that here in the United States. Most parishes in Lebanon have a St. Vincent de Paul Society. And those can be accessed on our website at www.stmaron, that's stmaron.org. And people can help that way. And of course, prayer and fasting and any support that for the good Lebanese people would be helpful.
Yeah, and I know in your statement you point out that Lebanon was once designated by Pope St. John Paul II as being, quote, more than a country, it is a message. Can you talk more about that? And also, what would you like people to know about its symbolism and significance?
So 100 years ago, a Muslim mufti and a Catholic patriarch, the Maronite Patriarch, went to Versailles purposefully to create a Lebanon that would be a safeguard and a refuge for Christians and Muslims alike. That's the beauty of Lebanon, and it's been a fragile experiment ever since. And Lebanon really has a diverse population, 18 different religious communities living in somewhat of a harmony. And so that's oftentimes missed. Lebanon is not completely towards the west only or completely towards the east only, but almost like a Switzerland of the Middle East, trying to stay out of everybody's issues. there. So Lebanon deserves our trust and our respect, especially the humanitarian work that's done there. John Paul II meant he got it for Lebanon. He knew it was more than a country. It was a message that people can find a way to work together.
Well, Your Excellency, thank you so very much for your time today and speaking with us and also what you do. Please know that we are joining you in praying for the people of Lebanon.
Thank you, Tracy.
Pope Francis says that he is praying for the people of Beirut.
Ieri a Beirut, nella zona del porto.
At his weekly talk to pilgrims from the Vatican, the Holy Father also says the Christian values of faith, hope, and charity can heal everything, including the uncertain times caused by the pandemic. And Pope Francis reminds the faithful to seek help from Christ, saying it will help us navigate even the most difficult waters. Coming up, pro-democracy activists in Hong Kong appear in court. A bishop in Ireland discusses the legacy of Nobel Peace Prize winner John Hume. People in Sri Lanka hit the polls today to vote for a new parliament.
I believe a mark of a true politician is that they must see this as service to God and man. And if politicians and the people work together in that way, then this country will definitely go forward, and that is my prayer.
16 million people are eligible to vote in Sri Lanka. To help prevent the spread of COVID-19, social distancing measures were put in place. Hand washing stations were set up, and voters were asked to bring their own pens. Pro-democracy activists appear in a Hong Kong court and say it was a piece of cake compared to dealing with a new security law.
Compared to the threat of national security law or being extradited to China or kidnapped by a national security agent, the price we pay right now is just a small piece of cake. We will continue our fight to overcome the fear and threat.
Joshua Wong also appeared with fellow activist Agnes Chow. She pleaded guilty to participating in an unauthorized protest last month and inciting others to join in. Wong pleaded not guilty to similar charges. Both go on trial in November. Today is the memorial of the dedication of St. Mary Major Basilica in Rome, and Pope Francis made a surprise visit. As the choir sang, flower petals were dropped from an opening in the ceiling, an annual tradition which celebrates the origins of the chapel. On August 5th, in the year 358, it actually snowed in Rome. It was interpreted as a sign from the Blessed Virgin Mary to build a church on that spot. Pope Francis brought flowers today and knelt in prayer before the image of Our Lady Solus Populi Romani. A funeral mass was celebrated today in Northern Ireland for John Hume, the Catholic politician who won a Nobel Peace Prize. Ireland's Prime Minister was among those to attend the funeral mass at St. Eugene's Cathedral in Derry, Northern Ireland. Hume died Monday at the age of 83. The Catholic leader of the moderate Social Democratic and Labour Party played a major role in Northern Ireland's landmark 1998 peace agreement. Joining us now is Bishop Donald McEowen, Bishop of Derry in Northern Ireland. Your Excellency, thank you so much for joining us today. We appreciate it.
It's my pleasure to be with you.
So tell us, what was John Hume like as a person, and what did he mean to Northern Ireland?
I think John Hume had retired from politics because of ill health about 20 years ago. So for a younger generation, John is more an historical figure. But I think his death, his illness and death over this past few days has really given us all an opportunity just to reflect on the giant that he was, on a world platform, as well as on the service he did to the local community. The Nobel Peace Prize, the Gandhi Peace Prize, the Mandela Peace Prize, the only one ever to have won all three, and one who was well known around the globe, and yet who never lost his sense of local belonging in this town and in this parish church here, this cathedral parish church. But he really was the architect of the peace process by analysing the problem and proposing an appropriate solution. So looking back on him, John was one of the giants of this past 30 and 40 years and one of the great peacemakers of the modern era.
I know the Archdiocese received condolences from around the world regarding his life. Can you tell us who has been in contact?
Well, we had a message this morning, obviously, from the Vatican Secretariat of State because he was a papal knight. We had a message from the Dalai Lama, message from the British Prime Minister, a message from Bono of U2, and obviously a number of other local church leaders were very supportive. I had messages from a number of Anglican bishops, from the leadership of the Methodist Church. So we've had lots of messages coming in, and part of my job was really to try and ensure that we kept as short as possible the messages. We also got one from Bill Clinton, who had worked very, very closely with John Hume in building the very successful peace process that John developed here in Northern Ireland over the last 25 or 30 years. So we had lots of messages coming in, and there would have been a huge crowd here in Derry for the funeral from all around the globe had it not been for the COVID restrictions. In fact, because of the COVID restrictions, one of John's own sons, who lives in Boston, was unable to be here. So he had to join us, like so many others, on social media and on television.
As far as his legacy, what do you see it to be?
I think John's great legacy was his personal integrity, which enabled him then to find a peace process for us. John had been in seminary for 3 years, training as a priest for this diocese, and then decided that wasn't his vocation. But I think it's fair to say that he really made peacemaking his vocation. He had that famous phrase, he was prepared to shed his sweat and never to shed somebody else's blood. So he worked exceptionally hard to bring the parties round the table, to help people believe peace was possible. To be not just a visionary, but also a practical architect. And he began here by working on homelessness, by working on a credit union for poor families. And he was focused very much on seeking to see how can we put structures in place, not that will serve nationalism or imperialism or any other ism, but that would serve the welfare of the people of this community. So it was his generous service that marks his life, his deep faith, and the fact that the Good Samaritan was the gospel that was chosen for the Mass today. John, who didn't walk past a situation on the other side of the road, but went across, got his hands dirty, looked after the person, and sought a solution for that problem. So John will be remembered as a wise, determined, persevering man of faith. And this city is sad to see him go, but very, very proud of one of their own who never lost his sense of rootedness in this city and in this parish beside the cathedral, where he came every day when he was well for morning mass at 10, and then came back in the evening and prayed quietly himself.
Well, Your Excellency, thank you so much for your time today and sharing all of that with us. Bishop Donald McEowen, Bishop of Derry, Ireland. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Tracy.
Up next, the Reverend Dean Nelson responds to students who were arrested for writing Black Preborn Lives Matter in front of a Planned Parenthood clinic. Two protesters were arrested Saturday in Washington, D.C. for writing a pro-life message on the sidewalk. The two were using chalk to write Black Preborn Baby Lives Matter in front of a Planned Parenthood clinic. They say police had told them they would not be stopped from writing the message as long as they used paint that would wash away quickly. The protest was to draw attention to the abortion rate in the African-American community. Joining us now is Reverend Dean Nelson, Executive Director of Human Coalition Action and Chairman of the Frederick Douglass Foundation, which co-sponsored the chalking. Reverend Nelson, welcome back to the show. Always good to see you.
Thanks so much. It's an important issue, and I'm glad to be on with you guys.
So have you received any response from D.C. officials following the arrest?
So we have not heard directly from the mayor or D.C. officials. At this point, we are working with Students for Life and Human Coalition Action to kind of come up with our strategy, because we do believe that legal action is in order on our part.
The pro-lifers say that they were asked to use a paint that would wash away quickly, yet messages like Black Lives Matter and Defund the Police have been painted in prominent areas of the nation's capital. Reverend, do you think there's a double standard here?
I don't think there's a clear example of a double standard. I mean, you know, at the beginning of 1 month, people can paint, Black Lives Matter in the street with permanent paint, and it be affirmed by D.C. officials. And then later on, several weeks later, you have people that want to simply write in chalk, Black preborn lives matter, and they're arrested. So this double standard is unconscionable, and we want to make D.C. officials aware that pro-lifers who support Black lives, particularly pre-born Black lives, we want them to know that we will not stand by idle and let this type of injustice go.
What's next for the two who are arrested, and are you planning any further protests outside of abortion clinics?
In answer to that second question, we definitely are planning more of these type of protests. Human Coalition Action has partnered with other groups around the country to stand in front of Planned Parenthood clinics. We know very well the deceptive tactics that they use, and so we plan to work with other groups around the country to continue these type of peaceful protests. As it relates to the two that were arrested, we're working with our legal team to determine the best course forward, but they're safe. That day they were released a few hours later, but it is clearly, from our vantage point, a violation of their First Amendment rights, and we are working with legal teams to come up with the best strategy to move forward.
Reverend, any final thoughts, anything that you'd like our viewers to know right now?
Well, I just would like them to know to stand in prayer and solidarity with us. We believe that while we affirm the human dignity of all people, this type of discrimination against those who are standing for preborn Black lives needs to call attention to the hypocrisy in D.C. government and in many city governments around the country. We know full well that Planned Parenthood has typically worked with urban elected officials to continue to push abortion on vulnerable populations, and Human Coalition is just the opposite. We continue to provide free services to women who find themselves in unplanned pregnancies in urban communities. And so we would just ask your viewers to continue to stand with us, to pray with us as we continue this fight to make abortion unthinkable within our culture.
Reverend, thank you so much for your time today. God bless you. Reverend Dean Nelson, Executive Director of Human Coalition Action and the Chairman of the Frederick Douglass Foundation. Thank you again.
Thanks so much. God bless you.
And finally tonight, Pope Francis releases his prayer intention for the month of August. It is for sailors, fishermen, and their families.
La vida del marinero, del pescador y la de sus familias es muy dura.
The Holy Father says the lives of those whose work depends from the sea is very difficult. They can be victims of forced labor or simply left behind. He invites the faithful to pray for them because without them, many people around the world would starve. We thank you for watching tonight. For the entire EWTN News Nightly team, I'm Tracy Sable. Good night and God bless.